Okay, so again, welcome. Thank you everybody for joining us and resonating with the topic that we have for today's session. So the topic, which is tied in related to World Unity Week, is how business can mobilize the World Unity movement. So I feel that this is such a vital topic right now because of what's going on, where you can see that in every single structure and part of society that unity is really what is being called for right now and pushed for, and you can also say fought for in all different parts, in all systems. So our focus is on business in this session. So why is that? I believe that business is one of the most powerful forces on the planet. So that's why I feel that it's important. So if you can imagine the impact, if enough leaders really shifted their focus from profit to unity, what would the business landscape look like? So obviously profit's an important part of business, but what if we focused on unity as being the most important part, and then profit and everything else came alongside it, but it wasn't the focus? I really believe that that will allow business to become a real contributor when it comes to the unity movement. So as we can see, societal structures right now are being disassembled. And I also believe that business is going through its own transformation and awakening and disassemblement itself. And I feel that part of that is how it's going to become a really potent force for creating unity by reassembling in a way that is focused more on unity and consciousness and is focused more on being awakened. So that's basically what we're going to talk about today. So what does this new awakened or united state of business look like? We're also going to talk on the panel today a little bit about leadership. What does a more united and awakened state of leadership look like? And also an example of how a more awakened model has been brought into a business, just so we've got a bit of, so it's not as abstract, that we have some grounded reality and examples going on there. So that's what we're going to present in the panel today. And then we also have some visionaries and like-minded people and conscious leaders that are here with us on Zoom. And we would like to hear from you as well and hear your contribution and your insights as to this movement, and also provide some examples of ways that you've been contributing to it or plan to. So that's going to be the session for today. We're going to go for 2 hours in total, and we will see what the format's like because we have a nice group here. We may keep it to a main floor discussion rather than going into breakout rooms. So we'll tune into that. So to kick it off, we're going to start with Jeff as the first presenter, Jeff Vander. He's going to focus on the prophecy part of this, which is really exciting. So Jeff is a mentor for awakened organizations, and he's a guide for the journey of coming home to who we truly are, individually and collectively. He sees the enlightened potential of people and systems, and is passionate about helping clients to find their way in these transformational times. So over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, everyone, for being here in Zoom, in the Zoom room, or on Facebook, wherever you may be in the world. I know some people are up quite late. So I would like to enjoy this shift from prophet to prophecy and celebrate the possibilities that are ahead. And as I was literally dreaming into the topic for today, I became curious about what is unity anyway. And then I wrote down a number of definitions, and of course I Googled, but it felt most appropriate, since we're talking about prophecy, to reach into the future and reach deep into consciousness and listen for what might be a working definition that I could use. So here's what I received. Unity is the differentiated totality in which every element, every being, and all of the gross, subtle, and extremely subtle energies fit together seamlessly and coexist harmoniously through knowing the indivisibility of all that is. So I know that's quite a few words, but there's unity and there's diversity in this unity, and fundamentally it's the so-called parts fit together and all are required. And there are examples from wisdom traditions. There are the seeds for this enlightened potential that have existed for millennia. So the Mayans had a word in Lakesh: you are my other self, we are one, I am another yourself. Thich Nhat Hanh more recently coined the word interbeing, and that means everything relies on everything else in order to manifest. And the Bantu peoples in Africa have the word Ubuntu, which you've probably heard. I am because we are is one of the common translations. So I'm going to share my screen because there are a few slides. I promise not to overdo it with slides, but there are a few that would be helpful. And let's see if I can make this scroll better. Okay, so I was also curious, what are the signs today that already exist that are pointing to where we're going? What is the direction of evolution's arrow? And I'm involved in a lot of different conversations and a lot of different communities. I've spent a lot of time working with organizations furthering the compassion movement and social justice, and that is especially essential right now. And so I've been aware that restorative justice has been emerging quite strongly for the last decade plus. And that's a shift away from punitive justice, where there's a sense of retribution and punishment. And the next shift is toward unitive justice. And there actually is a definition of unitive justice. It's new, but it exists. And there's a website you can go to, which is unitivejustice.com. And they say the nature of unitive justice is that it is a values-based system that has no punitive elements. It replaces hierarchy, judgment, and punishment with inclusion, connection, and mutually beneficial action. It embodies loving kindness. So imagine a justice system that embodies loving kindness. That's a unitive justice model. And then in communities and organizations of all types, there's been an evolution of consciousness from fierce competition, and that is predicated on a belief in separation and scarcity and needing to get ahead and maybe crush the competition, how horrific sounding these days, to cooperation, to collaboration, to co-creation even. And with each step, with each evolution, there's less of a sense of separation and more of a sense of our togetherness. And where does that lead? To the ultimate togetherness, which is unity. So there's a unitive model for working together where we know ourselves as one system. A friend of mine who's a non-dual spiritual teacher asks people, do you know? Do you realize there's only one thing going on? And when we know that, the whole nature of our engagement with one another shifts, and we can have diversity, and we can also have synergy, and we can be without conflict in our interactions and hyper efficient. Imagine a business without conflict, without drama, without having to fight within its own walls, let alone with others outside. So again, the shift to unity. And so there's a pattern here. It's not just an isolated occurrence that people in social justice are talking about unity. No, we talk about unity in business increasingly. So a friend of mine, Steve Farrell, has an organization called Humanities Team. Claire Chapman on this call knows it very well. And he writes about 3 waves of conscious business. And in his articulation, B Corps were the first wave. So multiple bottom lines, people, planet, profit. And so we have 3 Ps. The next wave is conscious capitalism, which brings in more of a framework and includes higher purpose. So now we have a 4th P. And we're fortunate indeed that people are embracing conscious capitalism now. It's actually becoming mainstream. And the next stage of evolution in business is not yet mainstream, but we could talk about awakened business. And Steve brings in the word presence. And he talks about oneness and this pervading spirit. And not everyone in business is ready to go there, but increasingly people are. And when we do, when we get into the foundations, the energetic and spiritual consciousness foundations of an organization, we get into the roots, we get into unity. So we can talk about unitive business. And there is a conscious business declaration. This presentation, which you're looking at, will be shared, so you can click on the links. You'll have access to everything. I do want to read to you the final point in the conscious business declaration, which kind of summarizes this particular segment. So when aligned with oneness, we could substitute unity. There are distinctions, but let's leave it as is. When aligned with oneness, business is the most powerful engine on earth for creating prosperity and flourishing for all. So a thriving world is possible when business gets engaged, when business gets in the game, and it is happening. Conversations like this are proof, and it's a movement. It's a worldwide movement. So then I asked the question meditatively, what can business do for you? Unity. What can business do for you? And that is demonstrate interbeing. So business has the capacity to test out models and ways of doing things and embody a multidimensional exchange of value that shows how inextricably connected we are to one another. The inputs and the outputs fit together seamlessly. Again, it's unity. And it's only limited consciousness that can't see the system dynamics, but that's okay, because we're becoming more aware, and we're becoming better at spotting the system's dynamics and inequalities and injustices and repairing them. Another thing, important contribution that business can make. Business is great at distributing whatever it might be, in this case, consciousness. So in embodying these principles that we're talking about, business emanates and it distributes without trying to do so. It is distributing new consciousness, and it's sort of like the 100th monkey. People just naturally start to get it. There's a kind of coherence that grows. And so not everyone has to study this stuff. It'll just be the way we do things. It'll become obvious. And then we have the ability to co-create at scale, a world that works. And now we know that a world that works is by definition a world that works for all. Buckminster Fuller introduced some of this language decades ago, and finally it's taking root. So the seeds of the future, the fulfillment of the prophecies, has its roots in what exists today, and we can choose which seeds to water. And we can, and business will, heal the structures of society. I was extremely heartened to have dinner with a friend last year, and he shared with me that he has an upcoming book with Raj Sisodia, who was one of the founders of the conscious capitalism movement. And this book is titled, and now it's out, The Healing Organization, Awakening the Conscience of Business to Help Save the World. So it's happening. It's getting easier and easier to prophesize that the future is bright, and the future of business is humane and highly successful, and it will be successful across all the P's, which includes profit. But increasingly, an organization won't be profitable unless it is loving. And some of you have heard me quote before, his name is not with me in this moment, but he said that if your business isn't talking about love by 2030 or sooner, you won't be in business. So that is the direction that we're going. And then the final opportunity for business to feed unity, as it were, is to implement the principles of true economy. So this is something that I received and I'll share with you. And I hold it lightly. I'm not saying it has to be this way exactly, but I was listening back in March and April for what does a supremely awake economy look like? How does it function? How does it feel? How does it taste? And in that moment, for whatever reason, I wasn't really interested in an incrementally more conscious economy. I wanted to know, where does this process, this human experiment, this experiment of business ecosystems finding their way holistically, where does it lead? And so the phrase that came to me is a true economy. And then I felt that it's not even fair to talk about an economy that doesn't serve all, that doesn't meet basic needs. Is that really an economy? It seems to me more a punishment. So back to unity and unitive principles. I won't read everything here. You'll have access to this afterwards, after the presentation. But the first principle that came to me is that ecosystems are the anchor assets. The foundation for any economy is the health of the planet and the ecosystems. And so those are the real assets that we're cultivating. And then there's a leveling out so that businesses actually are designed to eliminate the unhealthy inequalities. And that'll be a conversation, what constitutes healthy, what constitutes unhealthy. But what I saw in the visionary state is that everyone's basic needs are met on an on, but also that the definition of basic needs expands to include not only food, shelter, water, a safe place to raise your kids, but creativity, the ability to have time to explore one's spiritual dimensions, to create art and express one's soul purpose and calling. So that's actually a basic need, and that is necessary for fulfillment. Now, generosity, I feel that is probably fairly self-evident, but actually when we withhold, somehow the whole system grinds to a halt. And so when the generosity is present, then there's circulation. We value ourselves. So when we appreciate our own immense contribution and really see that it is immense, not something micro, then our relationship to this true economy can be quite different. It's easier to be generous. It's easier to not even contemplate scarcity. So it's a totally different mode when we truly value ourselves and our own infinite nature. So a few more. Do what you love. This is interesting. I was in conversation with a friend who started a business called Love To, and one of the founding premises is if everyone actually does what they love, it will work. And there's a lot more to say about how that can actually manifest, but there's a lot of clear thinking around doing what you love. And then the energy that you bring, that we bring to whatever it is that we're doing from love is powerful and empowering. It's luminous, and it actually brings in new consciousness. So then life equals value equals life. There's not value that is separate from life. I hope that's fairly clear. And if we're going to measure, because there's the statement, what gets measured gets, oh, that's funny. Well, anyway, it grows. So we are cultivating health by measuring it, interestingly enough. And we're measuring the health of ecosystems and whole communities and individuals, as well as the health of businesses, which can be assessed according to the bottom line and in these other holistic ways. I also saw that money makes a kind of spiral as it orbits through systems. And each time it goes around, it uplifts. And then finally, we're cultivating wealth in a deep sense. And we're protecting people and ecosystems. And the result of all of this is mutually assured thriving. So the structures, I'll read this, the structures of a true economy strongly favor activities and interactions that benefit all and harm no one. And the thriving of one requires the thriving of all, and a healthy whole requires healthy individuals. So business is going to bring about this vision, and we get to live that, and we get to co-create this destiny. And I would be delighted to be on this journey with you today and answer further questions as we move into the plenary session later. So thank you, everyone. I am grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jeff. That was a beautiful presentation. Okay, so what we're going to move into now is we're going to basically expand upon what Jeff was talking about. I'll be presenting that. So just to introduce myself again, I'm the founder of Visionary Sessions and a Visionary Guide. So I guide visionaries to gain clarity on their vision for humanity, tell an inspiring story, and engage the awakened leadership skills required to lead a global movement. So what I'm going to talk about today is more the application of how you can create this more united approach to business from the inside. So obviously, business is made up of individuals. So I really like to focus on leadership because I feel that if you can get the leaders to really agree and tune into being more awakened themselves, then that's how you're going to create a more awakened and united business. And that's how the business is going to create more unity on the planet. So I see that as the starting point. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because over the past 15 years, 17 years, I've been working as a marketing strategist for a lot of visionaries, helping tell their story, grow their company. And over the last few years, I've been particularly focused on conscious businesses, social enterprises. And what I found is that even though we may switch the focus of our business to be more focused on purpose rather than profit, and come up with a really good model of how we can change the world through our particular business or change a specific structure or part of society. If we are still carrying the old paradigm of business in the structure and our leadership, then it's going to be really hard to achieve that purpose and that goal. So in other words, the business is going to be limited as to its potential and the impact it can create, unless the internal structures and the leadership is actually, you could say, dismantled and recreated. And I say that because, especially since March 2020, there's been such a shift on the planet that what used to work in the past is no longer going to work because it's just not in alignment. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong or that it was wrong. It just means that there's a shift, and it's really important that we become more present and we tune into what is going to work now. You know, that we're constantly asking that question. And that could be in marketing, it could be culture, co-creation, leadership, finances, any part of business. I believe that right now it's really important for us to be open enough as conscious leaders and to tune in first, number one. We can discuss different ways of doing that. And just to say, all right, like what wants to take place right now that's going to benefit the good of all, that is going to create more unity, and actually be open to asking that question, hearing the answers, and then taking action. So I believe that that's fundamentally what's needed within business for business to become this united, powerful force for good. And Jeff obviously introduced a lot of different structures and models and ways that people are infusing this unity and consciousness in there. And I believe that ultimately, unless the leaders are showing up in a certain way, in a more awakened way, then even these really good models and ideas won't be taking the full effect that they can, if that makes sense to everybody. So again, I just want to say that I believe that the structures of business need to be recreated, and that's happening right now. It's happening in real time. So there are definitely some insights from the past that we can look at and tune into and see if they're still relevant and expand upon them and allow them to grow. As I said, open sourcing is a really good way to do things, where instead of appearing as an expert and saying this model is the right way and that's the best model and, you know, this model's finite, I like to say that it's good to present a download or an insight that you're getting and open it up to other people, allow them to tune in, and then they can contribute to it. And also for models, I believe it's important to tune in and see if they're still relevant. So what worked last year as a model may not be relevant right now. If there's 5 parts of a model, maybe now there needs to be 6. And I do that all the time. So I have a a session called the Blueprint that I've been doing for a few years, where I tune into the intelligence of an organization and I ask questions that allow you to build the foundation of your company. So why you exist, how you're supporting your purpose, who you're serving. And that model has proved to be amazing, where I was able to really predict what the purpose of not only the company was, but also the visionary for the next 20 years, like what their vision for humanity is and what they're actually, their mission is on the planet. I was able to get all of that information. So even that model, I'm constantly tuning in and I'm going, are these still the right questions? Is this still the right structure? Is this still the right cost? The pricing of it. So that's something to keep in mind, that we always really need to assess whether something that's worked before is still working. So what I want to do is I want to share my screen and share a couple of slides with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so can everybody see the slide that says nature? Yeah, okay, so I'm actually going to go back here. So what I found is that a conscious company, a conscious leader, a business that has a really good intention about changing the world. And as I said, I was able to use the Blueprint model to really define and get clear on how they were changing the world and what practices and principles they would use. So what I found was that with a good intention, if you're operating in the current and the old business model, so this is what I identified as the 4 primary energetic forces, you could say, of what business was made up of: fear, scarcity, profit first, and self-gain. So no matter how good your intentions, if you're still operating from this old model, you're not going to be able to achieve the impact that you want to achieve. So there's going to be blocks and walls. And I saw this happen a lot, which is why I knew that I also needed to focus on leadership and not just on marketing and storytelling. So then I identified, well, what's the opposite of that? What's the opposite of fear? It's love. What's the opposite of scarcity? Abundance. Actually, I can put them side by side. What's the opposite of profit first in a way that is destructive and ignorant? It's awareness. What's the opposite of looking at a business as what can we get? How can we grow? Making the we about the business. It's where you take a more collective we approach, where the we is about everybody on the planet, the animals, the environment. So you're taking a more connected approach. So this is what I've been calling over the past few years the 4 heart-driven premises. So this is an example of more of an energetic shift that you can take in your business, where if you feel that there's energies that are coming from scarcity, which is quite easy to identify, because that could be when you're looking at others as competition or when you feel that there's not enough, then this model is good to use, so you can rebalance your energy and go, all right, I'm going to focus. I can feel that I'm in scarcity, so I'm going to move over to abundance. And it's the same with anything on the left. It's a good way to create that awareness and then shift it over to what's on the right. So I'm going to share with you now my vision for humanity. So I like to talk about this a lot, that when you're a visionary, to have a future state vision of humanity, how you see it operating in a more united way. And the vision also has a pathway of achieving that. So it's not just I see X happening, it's I see X happening and being achieved through X. So my vision for humanity sees a new wave of leaders creating evolutionary impact through business by embracing awakened change. So I wanted to break that down for a moment. So what do I mean by evolutionary impact? It's a big word, right? 2 big words. Essentially, it means that whatever these leaders are creating are a new way of being and operating in society, based on unity, connection, and increased awareness of who we are and what our role is as humans. So that's what I mean by evolutionary impact. So it really is a new way of coexisting and expressing and being. And when I say through business, obviously we've discussed that business is one of the most powerful forces on the planet, and it seems that humanity's team is saying that it is the most powerful force. So wherever you stand on that. So that's why I believe that business is a vehicle that can really create this evolutionary impact. So I say new wave of leaders. So why am I saying new wave? And I'm not just saying leaders, because there's a lot of amazing leaders out there already. So the reason I say new wave is because we're creating a new style of leadership, a style that has never been seen before. So that makes it new. And how are we creating that? As I said, we're creating it in this moment. So we're tuning in what needs to be brought forth. How can we show up in a more awakened and connected way? How can we show up in service? So it's really taking a different perspective, you could say, a perspective that's not limited to separation, a perspective that's focused on connection, oneness, all of these words that we hear a lot that can be interchangeable. And a big thing about this new wave of leaders is they understand the self-responsibility they have of first awakening themselves, and that this awakening applies to being awake in life, business and leadership. So it's not separate. You can't say that, all right, I'm going to be an awakened leader and just show up awakened when I'm in leadership but not at home, or just in business and not at home, or just at home and not in business. So it's about being in that state all the time and committing to it and making that really a priority. So that's why I say self-responsibility is what these new leaders have. And then I'm saying embracing awakened change. So that in itself is evolving. What does that expression look like? How does that apply to business? How does that apply to leadership? I'm going to share with you a few things that recently came through. They came through in many different formats. I'm writing a book on leadership based on the Mayans. So looking at the ancient civilization of the Mayans and tuning into some of their insights and what really made them such a great civilization. So the model that I'm about to show you has come through in different formats of what I'm calling being in a state of expanded consciousness. So awakened leadership basically has these 5 principles involved with it: nature, love, service, heart, and embodiment. So you can also say awakened leadership involves leading through nature, leading through love, leading through service, leading through heart, and leading through embodiment. So I'm going to briefly just show you what I mean by this. So leading through nature essentially means having a relationship and a two-way communication with nature, where you tune into nature, you tune into its perfection, its wisdom, and apply that into your leadership, apply that into your business, apply that into your life. So it really is an amazing portal, you could say, of consciousness by building this relationship with nature. So I feel that that's come through as the first step for leadership. It's somewhere that we can always go. We can go to easily, even if we're inside. You know, when I was living in Melbourne, in the city, I used to have fantasies that I was in a forest with trees. So because it was hard for me to get there, I just closed my eyes and I pretended that I was surrounded by trees. So whether you're there or not, we all have experience of nature that we can bring to wherever we are in that moment. So I believe that it's important that the leader prioritizes an ongoing relationship to nature in order to gain deeper planetary insights, and also embrace divine timing, and knowing that the decisions that are made through the communication with nature benefit all, so they benefit the collective. So leading through love, what does that mean? Well, love's the blueprint of everything that's in existence. So when we infuse love into our leadership. I like to use the word infuse because we're embodying it, we're drawing it in ourselves, and then we're allowing it to be expressed outside of us. So love has the power to rise and awaken everything into its full potential. Love brings light into places where there's darkness. So leading with love really allows you to show up in a more fully realized way as both an individual in leadership and also the business. Leading through service is a big one, and I've been playing around with that a lot myself. So this is where you essentially get rid of needs, okay? So you get rid of this construct that you have of who you are and why you're so important and what you need, and you just drop it all and you just say, I'm showing up in service, show me. And who you're asking, you know, could be spirit, your higher self, consciousness, whatever word you want to use. But it's essentially transcending the ego and opening up to a higher viewpoint. So whenever I've said, show me how I can be of service, that's when I've been able to create new companies or new offerings or align with other businesses and actually do more than I could have done if I just was using my mind or my construct or definition of who I thought I was and why I was here. So it really opens you up to a more expansive view, and it clears a pathway. It allows you to align to the pathway of least resistance, I find as well. So things go more smoothly. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be uncomfortable, because there's going to be things that come up that you need to learn. But it really is about showing up and being open. Leading through heart. This is a topic that I've been talking about for many years, mostly in the form of intuition. But in here, in this context, I want to expand it out to say that the way of the heart is also opening yourself up to lead with joy, passion, connection, you know, all of the feelings of the heart when you're in the open and expanded place. So intuition is definitely infused into it, but I really want to highlight the word joy and passion. Like, imagine if we were leading from that place, if we weren't having all these constrictions and have tos and shoulds and needs, if we could just get rid of that and just follow this joy and this beauty and this expansion that exists within us. And the last one is embodiment. So I mentioned that before, that for every visionary, it's important that you're not only talking about the vision of a more united and awakened humanity, but you're actually being it. So people can feel it when they speak to you. They can feel it through your words, okay? Because I'm a storyteller. That's part of what I do in marketing. And I really feel that a good story and finely crafted words is not going to work anymore if the energy and the embodiment behind those words is not there. And that could be through the leader, through the business. And I'm sure we've all experienced that firsthand, where I'm going to stop sharing my screen. So I'm sure we've all experienced firsthand where you go to a website or you read about a company and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. And that's a cause that I really believe in. And then, you know, you go into further contact with that organization, and it could be as an employee, or it could be as a contractor or a participant. And then you just feel that something's off. So the energy doesn't match the words and the story that they are bringing out to the world. Has anyone had that experience? If you want to nod your head. So I feel that embodiment is really vital. So that is the fifth part of awakened leadership. So thank you for letting me share that. So we're going to move on to our third panelist, which is Chryssa Gardner. So Chryssa serves as a vision curator and devoted catalyst for higher purpose on the integrative sustainability of our planet. As founder of Optyva and the Optyva's co-creative, she inspires leadership as a steward, guide, and creative spark for empowering the co-creation of a sustainable world through business and lifestyles evolution. So Chryssa is going to continue the conversation around unity. So please, Chryssa.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. I am really honored to be present with all of you this evening as today's topic around the vision of evolutionary business is actually what fuels the very core of my own spirit and my purpose in the world. So this is a shared passion that is really at the core of everything that I contribute through the various organizations that I've been a part of founding and co-founding. So thank you for having me. Continuing the talk around how we apply vision and awakened leadership into an embodied form and share that with others is a key aspect of how evolution actually happens through business. Of course, to have the vision and the intention is beautiful, and without being able to fully embody that and bring it forward, or to have fear of doing so or hesitation, which many experience, is one of the key aspects of the work that I do to support coming forward through both personal purpose, organizational purpose, and co-creative intentions. So thinking through awakened and purpose-led leaders and how attraction is the key component for co-creation. And when we choose to show up every day as our most authentic selves and with integrity, we create this kind of universal regenerative field that I spoke about in last night's panel of really attracting not only the earthly beings and co-creators and other like-minded and like-hearted spirits, but being supported what I feel in a very like divine and universal nature and calling in the core of our own energy. And so being able to attract and align with co-creators is a key aspect of awakened leadership and embodying your vision. And as a very example of that, you know, Jeff and I have been co-creators and collaborators for many years now. And Jeff introduced me to Kelly earlier this year, which has been a blessing to just know that the connections happen through showing up authentically. And to continue kind of where we left off with yesterday's panel, where I was speaking to answering the visionary calling through the authentic heart and your connected vision, being able to show up every day. We spoke about how that calling doesn't happen once and then you shift the tides and then all of a sudden you're just in a new direction. It's a continuous evolution and a journey, if you will. We refer to that as the journey of both personal becoming and collaborative effort. And so my own experience with that has really brought me into, you know, originally starting my career off in corporate world and taking all of those insights that were learned and garnered, knowing deep within my soul that I was never there for the long term, but to really understand the system and the paradigm that we operate in so intimately that I could come forward and affect change from a very, you know, deeply felt and purposeful intention. And so in 2009, I left corporate world and founded Optyva, which through our purpose, as Kelly shared, empowering the co-creation of a sustainable world, is where I have found my own format of relationship building and accelerating both gravity and momentum for co-creative energy and new relationships and impact. And that impact, I feel what's new about this paradigm is bringing forward the qualitative measures. I feel that business rooted in profit motives and size and power has always been measured. It's actually what I did in corporate world was, you know, business performance measurement and strategy aligned to that measurement. And very, very rarely were there ever actual qualitative insights or measures or experiential measures that weren't somehow tied back to profit. And so that evolution that Jeff and Kelly have spoken about has been at the core of everything that my organizations bring forward in the world. And being able to shift those motives and those core measures is what allows that safety and that permission and spaciousness for individuals to also evolve their pathway based on different measures. I think, some of the larger corporations now have begun to shift their own HR measurement systems around performance measurement and how those tie back to business objectives, allowing people more freedom to bring forward their authentic purpose and to be measured, engaged against their own goals and insights rather than one another. And as Jeff spoke about, that shift in unity and mindset rather than competition and scarcity is a significant aspect as to how we continue to amplify that gravity that I'm speaking towards. And through that gravity is where that authentic voice really brings forward the cultivated fertile ground for organizational unity, both within the organization and beyond. So right now, a lot of companies in the current paradigm of business, will operate very internally focused and then externally very transactionally. Your suppliers, your customers, all of the labels that are, I like to think of things from a biomimicry standpoint, the ecosystem of business and how to date it has been very, very linear, even referred to in nomenclature such as your supply chain management. And the linear throughput that you see in product development and cycles, how technology and everything that we utilize is attempted to be co-created, but through very limited and linear structures. And so thinking through how business can evolve to be a force of change naturally on our planet, the most resonant form for that to happen is to think through natural ecosystems and how relationally organizations can develop around them interconnected and very resonant circles and cycles. And so as an example of that, my organization Optyva, that's the very premise as to how we operate and how we've built out networks of networks. And Kelly mentioned our Optivist co-creative. We are a kind of like a meshwork of many different resonant and visionary networks. And we've brought forward solutions and models based on the premise of not only letting other organizations shine and strive and individuals in their own purpose, but building and believing that that very diversity and inclusion and synergy is what models what the future of business should actually look like. And what that is a network of very efficient and mindful organizations rather than growing to be the next Amazon, Microsoft, Walmart, based on size and breadth, but more depth and an actual kind of antidote to the large corporation, which is removing those inefficiencies and the stresses that come into the system of size. And so through that embodiment, we've brought forward models and frameworks that have allowed that vision to ground in to actualized business on a day-to-day. We consult and advise, and we serve as guides for organizations from everywhere from startup entrepreneurs that are consciousness minded all the way to large companies. After I left corporate world, Microsoft actually became one of our largest clients. And so we work in a way that approaches all different aspects of business, different sizes, different industries, but through one really common premise that integrating, as Jeff referred to in that the prior people, planet, profit model, which is referred to as triple bottom line theory, integrating and replacing that profit motive with purpose as the core aspect of business. So I'd like to share with you right now, drop my screen. And for any of you who are wanting to look into this in active form, I'll paste into the chat window our Optyvist website with our research and our model that we are sharing with others. Oops, let's see here, everyone in the meeting. Going to share my screen. Is it coming through yet? Not yet. Now is it? Okay, great. So if you look here, this is Optyva's integrated sustainability model, and it's live on our research site in which you can peruse. It's actually an app that is active. And the three core pillars that we spoke about, people, planet, and purpose, replacing profit, have been at the core of how we've shared and embodied our own purpose as an example of how to build out sustainable organizations. And so this is our own transparent assessment of ourselves. We have a few goals here that we have yet to achieve. And you see here through the model that it is structured with 9 domains of business, organization, and operations. And then there are 5 levels of indicators throughout each of those domains. So it's inherently a 3 by 9 by 5 model. And this model was brought forward through years of research into organizations' intentions for sustainability. And what I like to speak to as one of the core aspects of sustainable business is today, there have been many frameworks out there and measures as to authentic sustainability, but most of them are based in those same frameworks of linear, grades and numbers and models, and they don't allow the conversation for that business ecosystem to really be nurtured. It's generally a third-party consultant coming in to do a qualitative and quantitative assessment of an organization, and then they get ranked and judged even through really typical systems like the CDP measures, and they are, it's literally like an A, B, C, or D, just like how we're graded in our education system. And so the organizations that get the A pluses and the general public entrusting that consultant's valuation of that organization is what drives profit, because those reports are released into publicly traded annual reports and what have you. So this model is really intended to shift that focus and look at how we can start an exchange and a dialogue ecosystemically once again, in that you could think of this as like a Better Business Bureau meets Yelp, where any organization can come through, learn about these aspects of a business, and not just the business have a one-sided conversation, but the public, their partners, their collaborators, their own employees, past employees, their leadership, everybody's perspective is valued, viewed, received, and contributive to how an organization is or is not authentically sustainable. So I wanted to share this with you all. And just know that you can peruse this at any time. There are multiple organizations in addition to our own assessment that you can see in the drop-down menu here that we've publicly released, and use this as an inspiration point for looking at how your organizations and what you're developing and co-creating in can be more sustainable in multiple facets. So thank you for allowing me to contribute today to the conversation. Really appreciate the share.
Thank you, Chryssa. It's beautiful and nice to see some awakened and united models that are already been created and put into place, and obviously that you're continuing to tune into and evolve and have open source and have contribution to. So what we're going to do now is thank you everybody for your patience. It was a lot of content and insights and solutions to absorb. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open it up to the main floor, if that resonates with everyone, rather than going into breakout groups. So you can just, if that feels good to keep the discussion open to us here, you can just put your hand up if that feels good. Yeah, the reason we go into breakout rooms is sometimes when it's a large audience, not everyone feels comfortable speaking, and so it's an opportunity for people to get to know each other more on that basis. But I feel that with this group here, it's the perfect amount of people for us to hold a main floor discussion. So there's a couple of questions that I'm going to put into the chat. But before I do that, I'm actually going to do a quick meditation, just so we can integrate everything that came through, get out of our minds, and we can just allow it to integrate into our energy, and then we can speak from a more heart-centered place. Does that sound good to everybody? So it'll just be a few minutes. So I just encourage you to have a tall spine so the energy can move up and down your spine. Have your feet flat on the ground or folded. Shoulders up, back and down. Chin slightly tucked in, eyes closed. And start to focus your energy and your breath towards your heart. So inhaling through your heart. And exhaling through your heart. Just allowing all your focus and your breath to be coming in and out of your heart space. Allowing your breathing to be slow, deep. Nice long breaths. And with your next inhale, start to breathe in spaciousness, joy, expansion into every cell of your body and into your energetic bodies. And with your next exhale, start to breathe out purity, clear intention, awareness. So breathing in joy, spaciousness, expansion. And then breathing out pure intention. And with your next exhale, start to expand the energy from your heart space into your electromagnetic field, which is 3 feet around you, above you and below you. So you may see a color coming out of this heart space. You may feel a certain energy or frequency. And then continue to expand this energy out further, so into the room that you're in. So bringing openness, love, expansion, joy, and peacefulness into the room. And then expanding out into the whole building that you're in. And then start to expand out across the world, finding the interconnectedness of all of us that are on the Zoom call. And expand your energy out to each other from the heart space, feeling this link and this connection. that we're all holding energetically. Feeling the support, unconditional love, acceptance, gratitude. And while keeping that connection to your heart space and to each other, I invite you to gently open your eyes again, coming back onto the screen. So I hope everybody could feel that. I can certainly feel more of a connection now as we go out across to Australia and Hawaii, the US, Canary Islands, and wherever else we all are. Putting the questions in the chat here. So I'm going to open it up for you to share. You can touch on any one of these questions. How have you applied some of these insights into your business? You can also change the word business to leadership. Or how do you plan to? So what inspired you, and what do you feel that you're going to take and apply with you? And you can also mention on a more general basis, what inspirations or key takeaways did you get from the speakers? So whoever would like to share from the heart, share from inspiration. You can raise your hands or you can unmute yourself and start talking. Aroa, yep.
I wanted to ask Chryssa about the cross between the takeaway that I really received was a lot from all of you, but there's one particular one that had me keying in since I've made technology in the past, and this is actually one thing that you said was the cross between Yelp and the Better Business Bureau, and I'm wondering how that's already being created. I've actually recommended that to a few different people making ways to help businesses. So how do you envision that? And I think that I envision it as necessary that we as a people have to check the businesses and what they're connected to and what they're creating and do a sort of like audit that's public of them. And as a business can be an entity, humans are entities as well, to get to know how, as they're saying, resonant and coherent the business is for humanity. So I would love to look at your model a little bit further because I'm sure you have that, but I just got introduced to it. So I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about how much that's a created vision for businesses to be able to be audited, or if you have that vision.
Sure, thank you for inquiring. So we developed this research several years ago, and it actually came out of academic intentions and pursuits. With the soul of my business, Optyva, it was definitely a co-creation between us. And I shared that with our team and our community, and our team actually brought forward and expanded this research, and we've begun applying this for many years now to organizations from a consultative standpoint. The aspect that you are inquiring about is really a matter of platforms development and where we're going next with bringing forward Optyvist as a open community and co-creative. And so that's always been an ever expanding aspect of our journey over the last 11 years. And that is definitely where we are going next. And part of that has been through bringing this forward in a way because we don't operate as traditional consultants. We share this from a place of inspiration. So we did so with full transparency and vulnerability that this model, our integrated sustainability model, is actually our own vision and view that we're sharing, transparently, and inviting others into that co-creation. So if you feel resonance with it, I'd love to continue a chat offline and receive your input and share a little bit more about how the model works, because we found the most sustainable organizations, literally like nonprofits in the food system, businesses that I mentioned through other, well-known and accepted measures of sustainability that receive A+ ratings repeatedly on an annual basis when we put them through this model, because of the depth of not only quantitative measures, but anecdotal and known like social measures. You can see the other examples that are up there. One that I find is fun to share, if you go back and look at the link, is Tesla. Tesla, really holds this position that they're doing everything for the Internet of Things and the economy and sustainable energy, and they have zero transparency at all around their true authentic sustainability or the production of their vehicles and the life cycle impact of those vehicles. They actually haven't released that information. And at one point when I researched the company, we were shareholders, and even as a shareholder, I asked and they wouldn't release that information. And so that lack of transparency is really part of the conversation, we feel is the future of sustainable business. And realizing this vision that we're talking about today is to have ecosystemic accountability. So that's what we hope and intend for. And yeah, that's why we share, is because we meet people like you. So thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to share, comment, contribute?
I have to be honest that I don't really have that much business experience because I'm an artist. So I feel a little out of place here. But I came on here because I want to learn more about business and become a better business woman. Being an artist, I think it's important to know business too. But I really like the model and seeing the model and seeing how things are structured in our world and in the business world. I do plan on going back to school, and I was planning on maybe getting a master's in business so I can learn more and grow more as a business person. So actually, this group is actually inspiring me, being around so many people that are business oriented and focused on growing their business and connecting with different companies. And that's one of the things that I get out of it. It's inspiring to hear people and leaders talk about who they're connected with and what organizations they're working with, whether it's health, food, and so forth. And I really enjoy this conversation. I'm learning a lot from you guys. And thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Your presence is definitely, your calming presence,
Thank you.
although silently before, is definitely contributing to the energy here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Who else would like to share?
James Jones has his hand up.
Oh, okay. James, yep.
Yeah, how you going? I suppose the next step is kind of really implementing it on an everyday basis. So like I say, I'm a parent with 3 kids, so I'm taking them to school, picking them up, and they got sports kind of, probably got to get them into Auskick pretty soon. But just also, I think it's just a matter of trying to bring that into the same kind of thing where you can go somewhere and play sport, and you can have like a community hub where you can have your co-working, have your personalized development, and really kind of start that framework and that education from a young age and from young kids, you know what I mean, where we can start implementing that. So we're doing this thing online now, but it would be good to have like a everybody can have like a community hub, a local community hub where they could go to, and you've got the Indigenous side of things, the non-Indigenous side of things, but just kind of normalising and bring this into the kind of mainstream on an everyday basis where parents, kids and everybody, you can mix sports with it, with business, because we're being more conscious now about if you are becoming a sporting person and an athlete and stuff like that. We've also got to look after the player, what they're going to do outside of sport, you know, so what businesses they can get involved in and what they can do to kind of set up that lifestyle as they are an athlete, but also as they're coming out of that. So I think it's good now we're kind of not just focusing on sports, we're focusing on how we can help them while they're playing sports, but also how we can build them up outside of like when they retire from sports. And I think it'd be good to kind of bring that into the mainstream and kind of create that local hub, and kind of, it's a bit like creating that network, and so you're creating that kind of tree of life, and then all those separate little hubs are kind of leaves of the big tree, kind of that will network and come together and build that. I think it's a good thing. So we're going to look at the framework. You know, it's good as adults and businesses and stuff like that, but how can we educate the next generation? Like they can pretty much hit the ground running. So it's just about creating that infrastructure to move that forward, I think also.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it was mentioned before a few times that really, if we're talking about leading and creating more unity within business, it's not just business, it's as an individual, and it flows over into every aspect of our life. So definitely that is a really good vision where we can, just have more united and interactive and awakened conversations outside the business and just in the mainstream more often. And I feel that, we are now creating that new structure as evolutionary leaders and awakened leaders that the young people will be able to embrace and then also evolve and expand upon themselves, right? Because it's not, everything's infinite, it's always evolving.
I suppose like AFL now, your AFL women's kind of brought into it. So it's gone from kind of being a boys kind of club to a sense of community now, because you've got the kind of female and male thing. It's like the sacred eagle of humanity. It's all of us kind of balancing out that male, female, and taking that responsibility of kind of educating and looking after the next generation kind of thing. And I think it's good with sports and stuff like that. So now we're going to look at kind of like, say, waffle clubs or stuff like that. Instead of just being about kind of AFL, you can make it about all sports, indoor sports, outdoor sports. You can cover all that, but you can cover the personalised development, because I think a lot of the Indigenous side of thing, you got the Long Walk with the Essendon Football Club, you got the Wirrapunda Foundation with the Eagles. They focus on Indigenous employment, and then the Wirra Hub's just open, so that's Indigenous kind of like a business hub and employment also. So it's good kind of mixing that all in together. So they're starting to normalise that now. I think what we've got to do as a non-Indigenous kind of community is embrace that and do the same thing what they're doing. And then we can bring all this stuff that we're talking about now, and we're normalising it, because it's really a part of the Indigenous kind of prophecies and philosophies and stuff like that too. Because the old industrial way of teaching only teaches you to remember stuff and repeat stuff, where the personalised learning kind of deals with that individual kind of talent,
Sure, and just to set some context, because I think we're the only two people here in Australia that James is referring to the, when you use the word football, it depends what country you're in. If you're in Europe or the UK, it means what we call soccer. If you're in America, it's, for some reason, you guys don't call it gridiron, but outside of the world calls it gridiron for some reason. So yeah, Australia has something called AFL, which is Australian Football League. So that's what he's referring to, just to create some context. So thanks, James. So I think, Mark, did you have your hand up before? I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I loved hearing from all of you. That was beautiful. I love the unity focus. Jeff, we were using it in another group. We were calling it sovereign unity, so that each sovereign member of the unit brings their gifts and as needed in the whole. And the discussion of value, I also really loved. When you said life equals value equals life, I substituted the definition for life, which is life equals love in action. And to surround that with love as the encompassing whole, and love from non-duality, love is can be one of the true senses if you say unconditional love. that can be a very non-dual source for all. It encompasses all and has no limitations on it whatsoever. And in dialogue, something else that came up as a thread in how you were talking about processes. I love, Kelly, you were talking about how to spot some of the old patterns, how to peel off the old patterns. Well, in dialogue, I know in Bohmian dialogue, David Bohm said, there is no winner in dialogue unless we all win. That moves from the competitive model of win-lose to win-win-win, which also follows kind of your triple bottom line aspect. But how we orient everything to we, including the planet, or we, including the whole, whenever we make decisions, instead of decisions that will just help my unit or my group or my aspect of things, that it never takes the we out of it. So I really love the way you guys present things, just beautiful. It is happening much more rapidly now that we're sharing it in this way. That brings up something that Chryssa said also about synergy. And I think Jeff mentioned it too, but synergy is what happens when we all come together and it creates more than the sum of the parts. And I just got off of the Buckminster Fuller Institute latest version of TrimTab Space Camp. I highly recommend looking into the next one. It's going to be also quite amazing. So I'm a big Bucky fan, and synergistics is one of the key things he saw coming, of how we can all do this together and really accelerate the change toward unity. So love your presentation. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, you did raise some good points. I like to say taking a collective we-based approach. So you're expanding the we, and that doesn't mean just our internal team or just our company. It's definitely the collective. And also you were saying something about the unity is really all of us contributing. It's not just about a few people. And so co-creation is so important, and not moving away from this, I have to do it myself, you know, that responsibility. It's knowing that you're part, that your actions are like you're a player in a bigger picture.
Yeah, that brings up depth too, where we, you know, I think I may have talked about this before in visionary sessions, but we're moving from the shadow frequency of organization, which is hierarchy, into another two-dimensional organization architecture, which is heterarchy. It's more flat and less top-down or control power over. It's more power with, but it's lacking some direction and some leadership. But like I said, if we have the gifts, everyone sharing their gifts to serve the whole, that works fine. But then to get the depth, you might marry both. You know, you might have many hierarchies within a surface. I always think of it as being toroidal, as a beautiful organization that's in constant flow, and how it relates to the next toroidal organization, which is also part of a larger toroidal organization, and on and on and on. So I really think we're moving into some of the first multi-dimensional organizations that do add not just breadth and width, but depth.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that perspective. Would like to share next. You can answer any of the questions about inspirations or takeaways. How have you applied some of the insights that came through? How are you planning to?
I'd like to contribute, if I may. I Well, as Jeff said, I've done the humanities. I've been involved with the humanities team, doing the business change agents course that looks at the conscious business declaration and bringing it into business. And just through a process of work over the last few years and joining groups like this and listening in, I can see a need for the finance departments within all the organizations to embrace all of this, because very often, even though we say profit is the bottom line is kind of shifted, often when the pressure is on, the bottom line, the profit becomes the focus again, or the cash flow. And I sort of see, until the finance department gets out of its silo and starts to be integrated across the business as a whole, and the finance people like myself as an accountant understand this bigger picture and this bigger way of understanding scarcity and abundance, or understanding how to value the individual and the we, and how to articulate this and tell the story in a different way besides the traditional profit and loss account, and connect networks across, looking at suppliers not just as transactional but as an energy exchange, and just shifting the whole thing. I think that's really important, and I have been feeling like I've got to do this. I've got to write this book. I've got to come up with a scheme or something. And then just this morning on our group, or yesterday as it is now, I had this vision of setting up a network of actually calling to other accountants and not just thinking I'm the only one who understands conscious finance. Because I've set up my company called Conscious Finance Limited. So I want to see how to build a network that calls all of the accountants and all of the finance people who want to make this change, and embed ourselves into all of this, to then support the whole organization, and not just be the ones in the corner going, yeah, waiting for you to trip up or whatever, to actually embody it as well. So that's my inspiration. And some of what Jeff talks about, the economy, the true economy, how to bring that down into our understanding of all the economy, looking at it across the piece, how it's developed from way back, and that's kind of like the future to move towards, but move towards it now. So that's my my vision and the inspiration from all you guys to come and join me. So
Right.
And I join you. So thank you.
Thank you for bringing those insights through. It definitely shows that departments within companies, bringing consciousness into every department, like my area is marketing. And for the past few years, I've been looking at how can marketing be done in a more awakened, conscious way. And you could say, how can accounting be done? How can law, like any part of an organization, how can that become more conscious? And then by taking that conscious approach, that that's benefiting the collective we. So that that's benefiting the whole company, also the whole planet and collective, and it just expands out by taking that awakened state in the beginning. So I'd love to hear some insights and contribution from other people about what's inspiring them or coming up after the presentations. And for those that have just joined us, please feel free to listen and get some inspiration.
Raid said he was ready to go next. So Raid, you've got the mic.
Yes, Raid.
Or Rade.
Okay, well, maybe he stepped away, but just when you're ready, when you come back, Raid, you're welcome to contribute. Did I see another hand? Actually, I'm gonna
I'll jump in here.
Yes, please, Glenn.
Glenn from Kauai. I enjoyed you mentioning the Conscious Business Declaration. I'm leading a hub that's a nonprofit focused on whole systems housing, and heart-centered communities. And what we're using the Conscious Business Declaration is part of our leadership principles. And of the 15 or 18 people now that have been kind of networked into this hub, into this journey, I guess we don't see departments in a sense. It's like everybody has a sense of responsibility for the whole, although individuals have silos that they have certain expertise in that they're bringing. And it's very organic in that through daily meditation and walking on the beach for me, people are just brought in, but almost by magic, not almost, totally by magic, that the universe just nudges into place, and it's like consciously calling for that nudge. I mean, I consciously call for that nudge for those assets, those people who have capacity, that have a heart for what we're doing, to just be, have their team nudge them into place for whatever contribution that they're to make at this point in time. And so carrying a consciousness of this deeply interconnected network of for us in physical form and us not in physical form in other dimensions, to participate and collaborate and co-create here on the physical plane, a remembering of a time when we had housing and we had conscious community and we had the things that that I feel like we're longing for now, that did exist once and have, for whatever, for our journeys, I've drifted away, and now it's about bringing that back. And I really feel like the work that you're doing, Jeff and Chryssa and Kelly, it's like just recognizing that the whole is much bigger than, it's a quantum whole, it's a quantum field, it's a quantum connection that we're experiencing and beginning to become aware of, and how to operate within it. And so you have a lot of appreciation for you guys and for all of us that have shown up to expand the conversation and dialogue. So, mahalo, mahalo, and I'm complete.
Thanks, Glenn. And I think you're just really illustrating that, because I know a few of you personally, and I've worked with a few of you, including Glenn, that we're now being more open to allow intelligence to come through, not just from our minds, our intellect, not just intelligence from other people, but this multi-dimensional intelligence, being open to that intuition. I will share that when I first met Glenn, he came to one of my talks in Boulder, and then we met up, and our first conversation actually involved multi-dimensional beings being involved, which we didn't plan, but it just happened. and then I've met, a lot of other people that are working that way. So just having that openness, that there is a lot of the answers that we're looking for to create this unity, they're in the collective and they do exist, and they're also coming from other sources. So just having that openness and that discernment to make sure that it is coming from the highest frequency, and developing those skills to be able to receive the information. So developing those intuitive gifts. So I just wanted to mention that. And Ray, if that's how you say your name, if you're ready.
That's good. Yeah, it's I definitely resonate with all three of the presentations, and interweave between all three, and have been working on this for a little while. And yeah, I totally agree that, starting with that healing space, which is, bringing the people together who are ready, who want to operate from oneness, who want to bring this in on the spiritual side first, at least in the inner circles, and then that's where the leadership would come from. But finding people that are ready to step into operating from truth, openness, honesty, love, and unity, and that just creates the field of healing where when each person, you know, there's just pure communication transpiring between everyone. There's no ulterior motives. If any triggers come up, they could be brought up to the surface to be healed by the group. And yeah, like you guys are speaking about efficiency, and business moves at the speed of trust. And yeah, if you're just operating with the same aligned goals, creating heaven on earth, and operating from love and truth and unity, it would flow really amazingly well. So I really appreciate all of you guys bringing those perspectives. It's nice to see other people seeing the same things in the ether that's going to get created from completely different aspects. That's beautiful. And yeah, there was some things about, like, you know, sharing and co-creating, and yeah, I feel like there needs to be some kind of energy systems, which is one of the things I'm working on, to bring a more fluid reward structure, so that everybody who contributes gets back energy, so that, you know, we want to have self-contained systems, so that we can have a toroidal field that Mark talks about, where the energy flows back to the people who are creating the positive benefits. That's one open source project that I'm working on, and the organizational structure that I'm working on. Those are open source because I think everyone should have them, and would love to dive deeper with you guys on that, because it's like, you know, developing the systems, and then the system is the blueprint for the plant. It's the genetics of the seed, and that seed is what's going to create the beautiful businesses that are to come. But we want to create something that is has some self-contained DNA or blueprint that we could just bring the people, and you know, it will evolve on its own.
Thank you. Some really nice and expansive comments there, which just reminds me that, as you can see from your screen right now, and World Unity Week and a lot of different groups that we may be exposed to, that there's enough of us out there that are saying, all right, I'm willing to become more awakened and evolve myself and commit my career and my life and my purpose towards that. So I feel like the days of being frustrated, especially if you come from a corporate background, of people just not being willing or wanting to, and then feeling like you have to do it all yourself or not understood. I feel like those days are shifting now, because there are enough of us out there that there is enough willingness and resonance with different offerings and expressions of our own truth that we can build and co-create together. So thanks for that reminder, Reid. So we got a little bit more time left before we close up. So who hasn't spoken yet that would like to share? Paula?
Hi. I love listening to you guys, all of you. I love being part of this group. The conversations, like several of you in your presentations, included love, and it ties, I think, back to last week when we were talking about grace, and the way, what inspires me is that I can feel all of my person, all of my energy knows that's the answer. As long as I follow love and try to act in grace and be in grace, I'm going to be able to contribute. I come from a corporate background where I just went back to school a lot and got different certifications and couldn't figure out why I never felt like I fit in. And now I think I get it all together, because it was never about what was in my mind, right, in my brain. It's about what's in my heart. And until I met you guys, I hadn't figured that out. So the love and grace really spoke to me today. And then also, Kelly, you mentioned nature, and Chryssa, biomimicry. Biomimicry fascinates me and feels like we could find the answer to everything if we just paid attention to what nature tells us. So I feel very motivated, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm excited to see what happens next for me and for all of us.
Thank you. Who else would like to share and contribute? feel like this is also a non-verbal discussion going on. So I can feel the energy of a lot of people right now who haven't said anything. So that in itself is a contribution, including Jesse, who I know came in a little bit later. I can definitely feel your heart space.
I came in a bit late, so. I have a quick comment actually, even though I missed a lot of it.
Sure, sure.
Because it's about business. I'm sitting in the office of a lady who, she's a wealth management specialist, letting me use her office for free because I don't have any wealth to manage just yet. But we were talking the other day about business and unity and kind of like the social value of projects in the world. And I don't know, just maybe it's something that came to mind for us was that in the world of capitalism, which isn't exactly going anywhere immediately, there is sort of this old paradigm of like infinite growth in a finite system, which we know doesn't really work in the long term, is that projects or businesses with that model inevitably have an endpoint themselves. Unless they reiterate their principles or value systems or nomenclature or names or like something, for example, like Facebook or other very large global platforms will necessarily end up with a limit because their model is based on a limited model. Whereas our thought was that focusing businesses on social and collectively agreed upon social value systems, while they may have a slower growth model, don't have the same limit to scalability in the long term. Was the idea that if we can identify our collective social value systems, the limit of scalability of said businesses doesn't have the same ceiling as ones based on a false model. It's just an idea that I don't know, just kind of popped to mind.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that. And I talk a lot about models that that they are not finite. And I feel that certain models that are presented are perfect for that moment in time. So you can say that they are successful in that moment. And then obviously sometimes they need to be tweaked or a whole new model needs to come in. So if an organization is open to evolving in that way, then I can see how a model won't be a limitation if the model is evolving with the organization.
Yeah.
So who else would like to have, we've got time for one more final comment and then we'll hear from the panelists again before we close up with their final comments. So I guess we've got a couple people that haven't spoken yet. No pressure. You can contribute energetically. Okay, I might bring it over back to Chryssa and Jeff and just see if either one of you want to add in any final insights.
Sure. And the less I say, the better. In part because I'm really appreciating that level of conversation that is nonverbal that has been weaving throughout. And that's where we find the clearest articulation of the unity, of the oneness, direct access to the visionary inspiration. And when we do speak, especially in a field like this, I wonder whether you felt the power here that can be directed into manifestation consciously. When we speak a vision that is clear and harmonious with life in this field, it is amplified and accelerated. So I'm grateful to be in this co-creation, in this unitive space with you. And I look forward to more in whatever form. I also want to honor the value of World Unity Week, the fact that every day is full of experiences more or less like this, people coming together in an inquiry, a deep inquiry around living unity. And I've been part now of 3 different sessions, and each one I feel goes deeper in the energetics. So somehow World Unity Week is working, and by the end, I suspect the collective we will be well positioned to live into these visions. So once again, thank you all.
Jeff,
Thanks, Jeff.
Chryssa, do you have any final comments?
Well, what came to me when you opened the space was to just bring forward the notion of belief. I feel like there was a lot of really, really beautiful vision shared from the heart today, and also in the chat room even, which I'm very inspired to connect with several of you afterwards. So belief is really coming forward just as a collective power and an ability to bring this vision into form. I feel like we can have a lot of, head and mind intention. And for me, truly believing in the vision and seeing it as already realized is what has been one of the most profound aspects of materializing these visions and dreams into the world. So thank you for sharing your dreams, and I will be sending belief to all of you.
Thank you. And I really feel that just from feeling the energy, the people that I know, the new people here, that we are all powerful creators and visionaries, and we have a lot to contribute to the planet. And I can see that we're all coming from a heart space and a place of service as much as we can, and feeling out exactly what that looks like. So I am inviting you all to stay connected with each other, with this community. I'm putting in a private Facebook group, Visionary Sessions Tribe, where we can continue the conversation. Ray, we ran out of time for you to speak again, but for example, you can share something that you're doing, introduce yourself to the community. So I really feel that these sessions, they have been happening every week. We're going to have a 2-week break before the next series. But these are really good opportunity to build your tribe. And as I said, we got the Facebook group where we can continue the conversation. So I am inviting you to come to that. And just to announce what is going on next. So we finished series 1.0 for Visionary Sessions, and we had some play sessions, and now this is part of World Unity Week. So what's happening next is in 2 weeks' time, I should say the exact date. It's going to be on the 14th of July. So Tuesday, the 14th of July, 4 p.m. Pacific time. If you're in Australia, that's Wednesday, the 15th at 9 a.m. And if in between, that's probably 1 a.m. in Europe. So we are going to bring out series 2.0, which is essentially on awakened leadership. So it's the 5 principles that I went through. So leading through nature will be the first talk, leading through love, leading through service, leading through heart, leading through embodiment. So we have speakers lined up for each of those slots, and they'll be sharing and tuning into how that is currently evolving and shaping and taking place. And every visionary session, usually there's a bigger group of people during these official series, and we go into breakout rooms and then main floor discussions. So it's not just listening to a speaker, there's an opportunity for everyone to add value, contribute and participate. So it would be really nice to see you all there. If you signed up for this event today, then it means that you're on the email list and you'll receive an invite. If not, then I encourage you to go to the Visionary Sessions, like the Facebook page, or go to the website, and you can sign up there, just down the bottom in general, to get on the email list, and then you'll get an invite to that event. So it would be really nice to continue to feel your energy and see your faces. Yeah, there's a website, visionarysessions.com. And also, if you want to receive the presentations, the PowerPoint presentations, those that are registered will receive them. If you haven't, then you can email me at kelly@Visionary Sessions, which I'll put into the chat. And that way you can get the slide presentations if you've seen this event through World Unity Week and haven't registered. So that is all the ways to continue to engage, and obviously this community is about supporting you in your journey as a visionary. So connecting you to the right people, bringing the right levels of inspiration, because that is what we're here to do as well, not just create a more united world, but also support the people that are contributing to that. So thank you again, everybody that came.